Hello everybody, it's Corey from Gemini Guitar, back with some metal techniques today. So this is quite a short etude, and it's sort of aimed beginner, novice, but maybe people that haven't looked at the technique in much depth. It's basically the dampening technique, and we're going to be using drop D tuning, so we'll need the low 6th string tuned down to D. So we're almost exclusively making use of the 6th and 5th string power chord shape, which is reasonably easy to do. Open strings are obviously very easy. When you have to do the power chord shape, you just need to use one finger and it bars across the 6th and the 5th string. Now the dampening technique itself is something that I see students here at where I teach from struggle a bit with, and one of the reasons for that sometimes is that they tend to make it into a bigger thing than it actually is. So just to demonstrate, so if we play the open string D5 power chord, now what you'll notice is with my strumming hand here, sometimes I see people do this, which looks, and you know, it's kind of weird to do, it looks funny as well, but basically what we've got to do to dampen is just come back into what would be playing position. So you just strum the power chord, and you'll notice that I'm up to strum and I flick. And then what I do is I just come back down, straight back down. See? So it's... And that's pretty much all there is to it. That might be a better angle. So it's... Now obviously when it gets a bit quicker it's harder because you've got to keep, you know, you're off the string strumming, and then you got to quickly dampen. So it's, and it's basically this part of the hand that does the dampening. You can't really see it sometimes when I'm playing. So if you look at it again, you can just see it's just about there. But it is basically just coming back down into the playing position. See? So yeah, just some food for thought on that. So really have a look at what you're doing when you're using the dampening technique. In the transcription, you'll see the dots above the power chord. That just means that it's choppy. It's the sign for staccato. So staccato means to make abrupt. So it's very... that sort of sound. Okay, so to begin with, it's just on the open D5 power chord. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention too is you might notice that my left hand mutes as well, so I tend to do both. So what it'll do, you can see it's just lightly coming back onto the strings, but it's not actually pressing down, it's just a very light come back to the strings. And to be honest, that's just a habit that I'm in. I don't know why I do it. It's probably a good thing. I like to think of it as insurance, just in case one's not doing its job 100%. You could also exclusively use that. The only thing I don't like about that is it's a little bit more finicky in that you may get harmonics at certain frets. So you've got to be careful where you actually do the muting. Somewhere around the 3rd fret wouldn't hurt. You could use the index finger there. But even then I'm getting a bit of a harmonic, depending on the finger I'm using, I think. Yeah, it's kind of funny that. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but I would recommend doing both in any case. So in the second bar then, we're going to be starting at the 3rd fret, and we're going to do that twice. So you'll need the first finger barred over the 6th and 5th string there. And then what we're going to do is the other technique that I was focusing on in this etude is the power chord pull-off in drop D. So to do this properly, the first thing is you have to have your first finger down to begin with, so you're going to have the power chord to pull off 2. And when you do the pull-off, it's not simply a matter of going like this, although you will get a bit of a sound that way. What you've actually got to do is sort of run the tip of the finger back down over these strings and out and off. So I'll see if we can get that angle there. So it's sort of like a brush over those strings. Now you've got to be careful because the higher strings here could ring out if you're not muting properly. So what you'll notice is my index finger is from this angle. You can see it's across the strings, and back to this angle. If we can see in there, you'll notice it's not completely flat. It's got a little bit of a curve in it. So just something to look out for. So we get, so see that? It's pretty straight there, a bit of a curve there. So you don't want to be completely straight. You end up getting strings and stuff ringing out. Okay, so that's the first two bars covered. We'll have a quick listen to those. Excuse me. So the third and fourth bar are actually identical, but what actually happens in the fifth bar, and this is something I like to do a lot, I'll take a little fragment out of the ending of the riff, and then I'll begin the next bar with that. So in this case, we were doing the power chord pull off from the 5th to the 3rd fret a couple of times in bar 4. So rather than starting back with just the open strings, which is, you know, that's okay, but, you know, if you keep repeating yourself too much, it can get a bit jaded. So what we do is we do that again and then return into the open string staccato dampening riff. So it's... So if you listen to it from the previous bar, and then what I've done here is put in a couple of quirky things. So in the 6th bar there, we're going to do 6th, 5th, 1st, 4th fret power chords. I like to use 4th finger, the 6th and 5th, then 1st and first and pinky finger for frets 1 and 4. So we get, oops, staccato time. I mean, you don't have to do that there. That could be an interesting way to vary it up, actually. That progression doesn't make a lot of musical sense, but it still sounds cool, which is often the case with metal. If you just chuck some minor second intervals and a few wider things together, it can always sound good, even though it's, you know, not really particularly central to any one scale. So in the next part then, we're going to use the pinky finger. I recommend using the pinky. Don't get hooked into just using your index all the time because it's easier. There's an interesting technique focus in here because when we do the pull off from the 6th position power chord to the open string, what you'll actually notice my index finger does is it mutes over these 3 strings here, and even maybe the 4th if you want. Now the reason for that is kind of obvious, but I'm going to tell you anyway. So you just don't want those strings to ring out. I mean, you can get away with it if you only stick to playing these 2 strings, but often when you really get into it, you might strum out a bit wider. So that's why you tend to do it. And then same thing then for the next part, although this time we're going first to open. And just let that first finger sit over those higher strings. Now this nifty little pick, hammer, and then pick, pick, pull, pick riff. So it's a repeating sequence. There's 2 triplets, and there's 4 triplets, and there's basically half the bar then repeats into the next half of the bar. So we're going to start with the 6th string. We're going to pick the 1st fret, hammer to 4th. Pick the 1st on the 5th string, then pick the 4th on the same string, pull back to 1st, so we get... And then you want to pick the 4th on string 6, and then just repeat that. There's a couple of different ways to do it at the end. I like to pick first hammer, then pick, pick, pull, pick, because I like that accent. But if you'd like, you can actually hammer on from the 1st fret to the 4th fret, just in the middle there. Makes an excellent legato exercise, but I don't recommend doing it for too long. I always found legato to give me just slight strains in the arms there, so just make sure you're warmed up before you do it if you're playing it at faster speeds. Okay, so that wraps things up. Hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to check out the download store, and if you buy any of the products there, that helps to support the channel. So if you can do that, much appreciated. The transcription's over at the website as well. Just see the link below the video, and I will see you at the next lesson. Bye for now.